Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Pirate Therapist with me. I am Lee Perry. I am your host, and I am the Pirate Therapist. Today, we have with us Lance McDreamy, and
Woo! How's it going?
his name is Lance McDaniel, but, look at the guy. The guy is
That's my
handsome.
stage name, Lance McDreamy. I'm adopting it now because of Lee.
Yeah,
Gave me a brilliant idea.
that's his stripper name.
That's it. That's it. You got me there. Oh, man.
All right. Well, today's topic is going to be on integrity. And before we do that, we're going to talk to Mr. Lance McDreamy, and we're going to have him talk a little bit about what he does. Lance McDaniel is his name, but
Mm.
all right. Anyway, I've done a couple of shows with him. As you guys may know, I do a lot of theater. I really enjoy theater, and so does Lance.
And he's the best. He's fantastic.
And I don't know about that, but you just finished Shrek,
That's
right?
right.
He was donkey.
That's right. I was donkey. It was so fun. It was the best. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So before we get into today's topic, which is on integrity, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what are you doing outside of theater? What do you do? I've heard some interesting stories about what you get up to.
I've been recently taking up writing, and yeah, I love stories. It makes sense to me, stories and making worlds and whatnot. So I have my one type of story that I've always loved is Brothers Grimm stories. So I have my Brothers Grimm book here that is my I study this a lot. I have pages and pages of notes on like every Brothers Grimm story, and I've been working on turning it into one big overarching story, and I've been making them into little movies. And I've been doing that through Minecraft because, believe it or not, that's cheaper than live action movies. But maybe eventually. But I've been
Oh,
making little Minecraft movies out of Brothers Grimm stories that I've rewritten into my own versions and been throwing them on YouTube, and that's been a lot of fun. Flamingo Kingo, it's my shameless plug. That's my channel. So
Kingo. Do you have a link for that? And I'll put it on today's
yep,
episode.
I'll send it over to you, and I can send over my most recent episode too.
That would be awesome. I'm happy to link those. So
Yeah.
what is your favorite Brothers Grimm fairy tale?
Well, my favorite is technically not actually a Brothers Grimm fairy tale, but like it's kind of like a gray area because it is, but it isn't. But my favorite, I love the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. It's such a classic, and I think I don't know, I love everything about it. I love the character. But I mean, as far as like actual Brothers Grimm stories go, there's a lot of really good ones. But I think just like the actually one I really like is not many people know this, but Snow White actually has a sister, Rose Red.
Mm-hmm.
And I love reading about Snow White and Rose Red. There's multiple stories with them, and I think that they're a great little dynamic duo. So I really like those two.
Cool. Yeah, I read a book. I want to say it was written by Patricia Reed. I could be wrong.
Okay.
About Snow White and Rose Red,
Oh, really? That's cool.
and it was kind of a fun book. No promises on that author. I think that's who it was, but I'm not sure entirely.
I might have to look into that. I didn't know like anyone knew about Rose Red, but I think that's awesome.
Yeah. One of my favorite Brothers Grimm stories is only about a half a page long.
Which
And I
one?
believe it's titled Fate.
Fate.
Mhm.
I don't know if I know that one. What's it about?
Well, being only a half a page long, it's not about a whole lot, but
Mhm.
I believe it was a woodsman who went out to chop wood, and the head went flying off of his axe and almost came down and landed on him, but he managed to get out of the way. He put it back on, and I'm going to butcher this,
No, you're
but
good.
he tried to chop the tree down and it almost landed on him and killed him, but he managed to dodge out of the way. He got chased by wolves who were going to kill him, but he jumped in the river and got away from the wolves, but he almost drowned and managed to get out on the other side. And then he crawled up next to this stone wall, and then the stone wall fell over and killed him. Basically, the moral behind the story is you can't escape your fate. It's kind of a morbid story, but if you know the Brothers Grimm, they're all kind of morbid stories. But I was just, I don't know, maybe it's my dark sense of humor. I don't know, but I really I'm like, man, this guy went from one hairy situation to another, to another, to another, and he just kept getting out by the skin of his teeth, and then he gets crushed by a stone wall, all in like half to three quarters of a page. It was not very long.
But it's a very grim story, and I love that. I love that.
You'll
That's
have to
a big
find it.
theme I've noticed. I'll have to because I don't know that one actually off the top of my head. But I mean, this claims to be the complete fairy tale, so I'm sure it's in here somewhere. There's like 221 of them or something in there. So off the top of
It's
my head, I'm not sure. But I've noticed like fate is a very big overarching theme through a lot of them. So I tie that in a lot with my stories, and I really like it.
That's awesome. So on your movies and stuff that you do, you have people voice those?
Hmm. Yep. Um, I'm kind of working through my expositional material right now, introducing the characters in the world and whatnot. But my main characters are Jack, Little Red Riding Hood, and Theodore Thimbleby was the name I came up with for him. But it's the story of the brave little tailor, which is a little bit of a lesser known one, but I really like it. And then my next one I'm starting to work on right now is Hansel and Gretel. So I'll bring in a bunch of people. Hey, if you ever want to voice act, let me know. I'd love to get you on.
I'm in. I love doing voices. Voiceover work is something that I've kind of always dreamt about doing. I've just never had the
Oh, let's
opportunity.
do it. Let's
I'm
do it.
in.
Yeah, that'd be legit. I'll let you know when I got something come up, but I'd love to have you in. Um,
That would be a lot of fun.
it's really fun, and it's really fun to see it all come together. But yeah, I bring in a bunch of people to do voice acting, and I figured I've always wanted to give it a try too, but I got tired of trying to find opportunities elsewhere, so I'm just doing it myself and giving myself the opportunity and trying to bring in as many of my friends who want that opportunity to give them the chance to do it.
That would be awesome. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. Is there any other kind of plugs you want to give your stuff before we move on to the topic?
I think that's mostly it. I do a lot of that, and yeah, I'm just working on a bunch of different stuff with that. Just story writing, something I'm exploring.
Well, one of these days, I'm going to do an episode on the effects of creative writing and mental health
Okay,
because there's a lot of processing we do through creative writing, and it actually helps us work through a lot of our own issues, things we struggle with. When you do creative writing, when you engage in that endeavor, you're actually processing some of the stuff that your brain maybe you were
doesn't know
struggling
how to
with and your
express other
brain didn't
ways.
know how to do so on a conscious level. And so my wife is a writer,
Oh, really?
and I bought her a mug one year. I says, "Don't make an author angry; they'll kill you in a book." And
That's
there,
awesome.
there's a lot of truth in that because from what I've seen, from I know a few authors, but from what I've seen, there's a lot of processing that goes on. Not necessarily I'm mad, I'm going to kill you in a book. I mean, that's kind of a funny thing, but I know it's
Yeah, yeah.
happened because I heard a story. I can't remember if I heard it directly from Larry Correa or just about him. He's an author. He lives here in Utah. He writes Monster Hunter, not the video game, but he's got
Okay.
a Monster Hunter series. I think it's called Monster Hunter International.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
And it's basically there's this kind of clandestine government agency that's hired to get rid of all of the creepies, the spookies, the violent, mythical creatures that
Is this like a alternative universe where there's monsters and
yep,
creatures living amongst people? Okay.
yep.
Okay.
And they're supposed to kind of stay on their side of the fence. And when they don't, this agency gets hired to go take them out. Lots
Okay.
of guns, lots of, 12-year-old boy testosterone kind of stuff.
Yep, yep.
And anyway, in his very first book, and forgive me, Larry, if I get this wrong, I'm sorry. Not that I expect you'll ever see this
We're gonna
podcast.
send this to him, and he's gonna give us some critiques here.
Well, I've seen him, I've talked to him even, but I'm fairly certain he hasn't got the first inkling as to who I am. But in his first, well, before his first book, he was an accountant.
Okay.
And he had a boss that he just did not like. And so when he wrote his first book and it got published, in the very first chapter, the very first thing that happens to the main character is he finds out he's an accountant in this accounting firm and he finds out his boss is a werewolf or something like that. And so the guy comes out and attacks him and he ends up throwing his boss out the window, falling down so many stories. And I'm like, all right. So apparently it does happen where an author will put someone in their book just to kill them.
I love that.
I think it's preferable to actually doing it in real life, legal
Well,
consequences and all.
I got two more short little stories going along with that. The first one, did you know that Farquaad in Shrek, his name came from how his employee or Farquaad was named after the like head guy over the studio, and it kind of sounds like another word, and that's how they felt about their boss. So they that's where the name Farquad came from.
I had no idea. I never heard
Uh-huh.
that.
That's a little bit of trivia for you. Secondly, just on a more personal level with my writing, I found that like with my characters, they represent a different part of my mind and ways that I feel about things. So like this most recent episode I did about the brave little tailor is about this little tailor who's in this small little town, and he just feels like he's not achieving much with his life, and people around him are telling him like, no, you're doing good, you're doing the best you can, and you're doing good with what you have, but he just always, no, no, I have to do more, I have to do more, despite all these things that tells him if he listens to that and gives up everything, that ultimately he's gonna lose it. I don't know, it's hard to describe off the bat like this, but but I that's kind of something that I feel a lot is like I want to do more with my life, but like I'm doing a lot, but I just still feel like I need more and more and more. But ultimately, I feel like that's not always a good desire, and that's my way of like putting that into writing and putting out those feelings that I have into a character. So it's kind of I can relate to that, you know. Does that kind of
Mhm.
make sense? I feel like I was saying a lot of random words there, but
No, you're good. So anyway, I didn't wanna get
mhm.
off on a tangent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Also, in a future episode, I'm going to introduce Skitters. Skitters is my ADHD brain, and
I
uh,
love that.
we are not yet ready to introduce Skitters.
Okay, Skitters of the future.
So I'm going to drag us back onto today's topic, and it's
Yes.
on integrity. And I'm just going to kind of go off a little bit. If you want to chime in, feel free to do so.
Okay, please go
And I'm
right
going
ahead.
to ask you some questions. Imagine if you're at a grocery store and the cashier gives you $20 too much change. Nobody notices, the cashier doesn't catch it. You walk away, or do you walk away richer, or do you give it back? That moment where nobody knows but you, where you have to make a quiet choice, that's integrity. So I'm going to give a little story here and then we can discuss or move on. Marcus he works at an office and he was working late and he was tired at the end of his day and he decided he wanted to stop and get some dinner on his way home. He slid into the booth. He was really kind of not paying attention to much, but when he scoot in, he noticed he put his hand down and he found a wallet. He looks in the wallet and there's a bunch of cash in there. There's ID. There's everything you would expect to find in a wallet. Unless you look in mine, then there's not much cash. But
Relatable, me too.
he picks it up and he noticed that it's got a bunch of cash in there. It's got ID. It's got credit cards. It's got other things. And he thought to himself in that moment, and I think we all have that moment. Being tempted is not. We're all tempted from time to time, and this is where integrity comes in. For a moment, he was tempted to just keep it. He's been stressed about money. Nobody saw him find it. He could pick it up. He could pocket the cash. Nobody would ever know. But then another thought surfaced. What if that was me? What if I were the one who lost it? I know how hard I'm looking for money right now. If I were to take this, what if I put myself in the other guy's shoes? How would he feel if he were just as hard up for money as I was? So he took the wallet to the manager. He left him his name and phone number in case there was a reward or in case the guy never came back to claim it. He got a call later that night, and it was from a young father who was practically in tears thanking him. The wallet carried not only his money, but it had his insurance card that he needed for his daughter who was going in for a procedure the next day. And he needed to have all of that to be able to take care of his daughter. So he was very grateful. Marcus didn't know that in the beginning. When he found the wallet, he didn't know the story behind it. I think it would be a lot easier for us to have integrity and show that if we knew the story and how badly that money was needed. But he didn't know that, but he still chose to have integrity and turn in the wallet. So, what do you think Marcus was able to get in return for showing that integrity and turning in that wallet? What positives did he take from that?
Well, I think that a lot of that comes down to what's more important in the long run is physical things that we can hold, that we give value in our minds because they, say $5, $20, whatever. At the end of the day, those are just pieces of paper. Those are just, I don't know, like this is just some random flamingo thing I have. It's fun, it's pretty, but like this really doesn't, I can't do anything with this. Um if I was Marcus and I was walking out of there and I found out that had happened, I was able to help that father in that way, then I mean, that would mean infinitely more than 20, heck, even if it was 100, $1,000, infinitely more than that, because I think in my mind, people and being able to help someone is infinitely more special and more important than physical things. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, some of the things that I think he would probably be able to take away from that experience would be peace. He's going to feel good after he does that, especially once he finds out the story and he was able to return that to this father. The peace he would have for that, the feel good that would go with that. You know, he might be hard up for money, but he knows this guy was too at this point, and
Mhm.
that will make him feel really good. He will have the gratitude of a stranger. That may or may not mean a lot to some people, but I think we all appreciate the feeling we get when someone is grateful for what we do, whether we know them or not. I think, I don't know if this is the right word I'm looking for, but it will help him trust himself. Showing that integrity, it will reinforce the idea that he's a good person. He can trust himself to be a good person, and he can, I don't know, kind of believe in himself more. He
Mhm.
doesn't have to question his morality, I guess.
Right, because I think a lot of morality and a lot of things like that come down to those small little choices, because in that sort of situation, like, he may have also thought, "Oh, well, this wall got left behind," or he could have been like, "I'll just take $20 from it and give it back." But then at that same time, it's that one little choice that, I feel like it makes it's kind of a spiral down after that, and yeah. Whereas opposed to you make the right choice, you don't carry that with you anymore. You feel walk away feeling good. But even if you did just take $20 from it, you're gonna be thinking about that. You're gonna be like, well, I mean, should I return the wallet? But I took this, and you're gonna be thinking about that for a while, you know? I know
Right.
I would.
And if you took the money and you decided to, you could make some justifications in your mind. Well, $20 is a reasonable reward for returning it. You know, but even then, I think you're still not going to feel good. I think you're still going to question whether or not it was the right thing. However, if the guy gave you a reward for it, you would feel good,
Mhm.
you know?
I think a pretty good rule of thumb is if you have to sit and do mental gymnastics in your mind to justify
Mhm.
something, that probably is a good sign that you need to rethink your choice.
Absolutely. If making excuses or justifying is involved, there's probably, you're trying to dance around the part of life we call integrity.
Mhm.
But
Absolutely.
so what is the dictionary definition of integrity? Do you know?
I don't know, I can find out.
I got it.
Okay, okay.
It is consistency between values, words, and actions. You'll note that time and witnesses are not a part of that definition. Okay. It's not about perfection. It's not about being the perfect person. It's about having your values and your words and your actions all aligned in a positive direction.
Mhm,
And I'm sure we've all heard the quote, integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. I'm
mhm.
sure you've heard that. Everybody's heard that one, I think. Why does integrity matter?
I think sorry, are you asking me there? Is that
Yes.
okay, okay. So, I think that I don't know, this is something I'm very passionate about, but the idea that everyone in the world, I believe that nobody is born to be a bad person. Nobody is born to just make bad choices. I think that everyone has a moral compass and that they come to those conclusions for a reason. And everyone believes that the reason they are doing something is for a good reason. And I think that integrity doesn't always necessarily have to be, there's one right decision here. I think that it's when someone says something, they act upon that something, and they stand with it. And that can be on whatever side of an issue or whatever, from the simplest of things to the most complicated of things. But if you act on what you say, you stick to what you say, and you be the best person you can be besides that, and you're showing integrity, that's where we're going to start seeing people who are making change in the world and helping people, and not just being silent watchers as the world goes by, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does. And I agree with that completely. And I also think that we should never be the one that just sits quietly and lets the world go by. I think we should all be people of action to
Mhm.
make decisions and move forward. You
I
know,
absolutely agree with that.
let's all change the world in a positive direction.
Mhm,
So, one of the reasons I think it matters is because integrity not only is good for yourself, but I believe you said so, maybe not in these words, but when you have integrity, you kind of get that reputation. And everybody likes the guy that acts with integrity. They like the person that acts with integrity. Is you add trust to relationships, whether that's romantic, whether that's platonic, whether that's a work relationship. When people know you are a person of integrity, they will trust you more. And that trust, if someone can trust you to do the right thing, that makes me feel good when someone has that trust in me. I feel good knowing that people know that I am going to act with integrity, that I'm going to be a man of my word, that I am going to behave in a certain way that is not going to intentionally harm anyone. I think that's important. It gives me self respect. It gives me that inner peace I spoke of a little bit ago. It allows us to have more influence with people around us. Now, I don't know. Some of us may want influence, some of us may not want to be able to influence the people around us. But I think if we act with integrity, if we have that good moral compass, if you will, we will have an influence on the people around us, not for any kind of negative way, but it will allow us to brighten the room when we walk in. It will build that trust with people so they're not scared to come ask us questions.
Mhm.
It's a mark of a good leader if they have integrity, because then people know that they can trust them. People know that they can go to them if they're concerned or worried, and it just helps those relationships. The long-term impact is far better for us than by having integrity than not having integrity. If say he were to have taken that wallet or taken the cash and turned in an empty wallet or whatever, he would have had money up front, but he wouldn't have felt good about it. And any of the gain he got from that money would have been gone almost instantly. But how he felt about it would have gone far longer.
Mhm.
And when we act with integrity, I think that I don't know if legacy is the right word. I don't it will last on our impression of ourselves far longer, and it will create that image, that belief from other people in us if we act with integrity
Mhm.
consistently. So, what are some challenges that come with acting with integrity?
Let me think. I think that you give, I don't know, people have such well, like you were talking about how people start like associating you with one thing or another, or um you build up your reputation um as one thing or another, and then that can be harmful because there's the reverse side of integrity. Not that can be harmful. I think that's a good thing, but I think there's the reverse side of it as well, where like if Marcus had taken the cash and then he starts spiraling there and he puts himself in other situations and he builds up that harmful reputation. He's not going to be trustworthy anymore. He's not going to be have that good reputation. He's not going to, all those kinds of things, because I honestly can't think of anything off the top of my head that I would say is harmful about acting with integrity, though. But I am curious if you have examples or anything, though, because I'm sure I'd get it when you start talking. But all I can think is the reverse side right now. So I don't
Well,
know. What do you think?
some of the temptations in not acting with integrity are you can get some cash quick. You
Mm,
can make filing your taxes easier so you get more money back by maybe fudging some numbers, by padding your resume, just cutting corners in general. Excuse me, it can make things faster. You might get some short term gains. Those are the temptations of not acting with integrity. There can be social pressure, peer pressure. Everybody's going to do this. Why don't you come too? Well, if
mhm,
I don't believe it's right, I probably shouldn't. And fear of consequences. If I tell the truth over something I know, I might get in trouble. That would be a temptation, right? That's a challenge to me acting with integrity, because maybe I did something wrong, or maybe me just seeing it might get me some consequences. Maybe not because I did anything wrong, but because I saw somebody do something wrong and they may come after me. And if I don't say anything, then the law may come after me. Or you get what I'm saying? It's the fear of consequences. Perhaps we may be embarrassed if it got out that we did something or know something, but it needs to come out.
mhm.
We might get rejected. I think everybody on some level is afraid of rejection. We don't want people to
Rejection is
not like
hard.
us. Some gray areas. Well, I don't know that I can think of any gray areas. Integrity isn't always black and white. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes we have to make a choice. We have a bad choice or a crappy choice. You know, we don't have a good choice and we need to make a decision. And it's not always one that we're necessarily comfortable with. Now, an example I use a lot when talking about choosing to break a rule. Rules need to be black and white. This is the rule. You either follow it or you break it.
Mm.
Are there reasons to sometimes break a rule? I say yes. Sometimes there is a reason to break a rule. The example I use is if my wife were needing to go to the emergency room, I may not be going the speed limit. I might be
Mm.
doing some California stops through some stop signs if there's nobody
Mhm.
coming. Now, am I breaking the law? Yes. Am I acting with integrity? That would be a gray area, I think.
I'd say so.
Because again, it comes down to two choices that are kind of garbage. Do I get her to the hospital and get her taken care of because something dire is happening? I think that need trumps the need to go the speed limit. But I also have to understand if I make that choice and a cop sees me and pulls me over, I have to accept the fact that I did that. I can't say, oh,
Mhm.
well, I made a mistake or, oh, I shouldn't be punished because I chose to break that rule.
And you have to take the consequences of that.
Right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I do think that there are some gray areas and
Mm.
they're just a little harder to think of off the top of my head.
I get that, I get that. But I get what you're saying, like, there are rules are there for a reason, but there are times when you just find yourself in between them, and you have to make a choice between doing what you believe is right versus following the rules that you've always believed are right and moving forward anyway.
Sometimes they conflict and you have to
Mhm.
choose. All right, moving on. Some examples in the workplace. Standing up for what is fair when a colleague is being treated poorly. Now, I'm sure you've worked some places. I'm significantly older than you, so I know I've worked in some places, but I'm pretty sure you're old enough to have worked in places where favoritism plays a part, where this person is a favorite of the boss, so they get away with things, where this other person is kind of the opposite end of that spectrum. The boss doesn't really like them, and so they kind of heap things onto that person.
They seem to somehow get in trouble a lot more.
Right. And so an example would be standing up for that
You're
person.
all blurry here. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I'm just trying to refocus my camera.
You're good.
We're good.
So integrity might be going to the boss and saying, hey, we need consistent and fair behavior across the board. And again, that might be a gray area because that might put you into some crosshairs of your boss who doesn't like being called out like that. Incidentally, I would never do that publicly. I would pull him aside and maybe say something. Sometimes we need to choose honesty in a friendship, even if it risks hurting that friendship. And I would hope it doesn't, because I've always said that a good friend is someone who's willing to kick you in the seat when you need it
I absolutely agree.
and not someone that always just agrees with you and supports everything you do. We need the friend who supports us, but sometimes that support comes in the form of a kick to the seat because we're messing up and we need that gentle, friendly boot to the backside to remind us to get back on the path.
A good friend isn't someone who's just going to agree with everything. They're going to help make sure that you're putting yourself on a good path for success. Not that you're
Absolutely.
not just be like, "Hey, yeah, you're doing great. Just keep doing what you're doing,"
Yep.
because we aren't
Absolutely.
always doing great, and we need someone
No,
to tell us that.
no. We've all made bad decisions. We've all chosen wrong before. And I'm not going to harp on anybody for doing that. But that doesn't mean we don't need to recognize that, fix that, and adjust it. And a good friend will help you do that. But
Mhm.
that might be a gray area for acting with integrity because I don't want to lose this friendship. But the other side of that coin would be, is the friend really going to stop liking you because you call them out and give them a boot to the seat? Hopefully, you're not doing it in a cruel way, but doing it in a manner that will help them see what they're doing and not otherwise.
I'd
So,
rather I'd rather have know that I did everything in my power to make sure that my friend is going to be okay than to know that I just made them feel good about what they were doing, even if it's not good.
yes, I want those kind of friends. I want the kind of friends that are going to be honest with me over always supporting me regardless of my choices. Now,
Because
hopefully, I'm not
if
making
I was
any
making
choices that they have to question.
but if you are, that it's just you'd rather have that friend who's there to tell you.
Yes,
Then because even it's hard to hear. It's not always fun to hear because sometimes you completely disagree, but you need that outside perspective who's looking in and thinking, okay, well, you know what, maybe they're right.
I agree. So, some ways we can practice integrity every day Be clear on what matters to you. Know what is important to you. Know your moral compass. Know what makes you believe, what makes you try. Know those things. Know your core values. Pause before you act and ask yourself, does this align? Does this decision I'm about to make align with who I think I should be? And I think when we don't ask that, even if it's just ever so brief, if we don't ask that, that's where sometimes we make bad decisions. Sometimes we give into the temptation to not act with that integrity. And hopefully we all try to act with that integrity. But I like to think as I get older, I'm better at it than I used to be when I was more impulsive. I'm still pretty impulsive.
I'm very impulsive, so I understand that.
The ADHD brain. Okay. Something else you can do daily to practice integrity is try to be honest. Always be honest if you can. Now, that said, I was in a restaurant one day and there was a young couple sitting in the booth next to me, well, just across the way. And I was sitting with my wife and they were being a little loud. So I could hear their conversation. Wasn't necessarily trying to, but they were being a little loud. Anyway, I don't know what they were talking about as far as the situation, but I heard her say a phrase that really kind of bugs me. And she said she was really mad at me, but I'm just being honest. I hate that phrase because that phrase is an excuse to be mean a lot. I'm just being honest. Okay. Well, Mark Twain has a nice quote about that.
Okay. I love Mark Twain.
Okay. It says, honesty without tact is just cruelty. And I really like that quote. That's one of my favorites. So we should always be honest, but we should also take into consideration the person we're being honest to and not be as offensive as we might potentially be. We should try and work away from that. Try and be honest, but also try not to be offensive.
Have you ever heard of like a compliment sandwich?
Where you give them a compliment, you say what the problem is, and then give them a compliment.
Yeah, yeah. I like to think it's something like that, like constructive criticism. You should let people know what the problem is. I'm also a very big advocate for open communication with people. So like if I had a problem with you, I would come to you and I would let you know that I have a problem and I would talk that through with you. And I would hope that like you would do the same for me. But then I also um, like I know, like in acting in theater, I like to think I take constructive criticism well, but sometimes it's a little hard when the only thing you're getting is the criticism. So I think it's important in like theater as well as life that we tell the person what they're doing well as well. Say, hey, I think you're doing a great job with this right now. I just think that I don't know, I'm having a bit of a hard time with this, you know?
No, I think tact is huge. I think tact is every bit as big as honesty. We should try for both, not just honesty, because I don't know if you've ever been on the receiving end of cruel honesty, but that can hurt. That can hurt a lot. And so hopefully we never try to hurt someone when we have to be honest, when you have to be that friend that puts your boot in their seat. Do so as kindly as possible. Don't do it just, I mean, it sounds pretty rough when I say, give them a boot to the seat.
Mm.
It's going to feel that way regardless. But as long as the tact and compassion is there, I don't think it's going to be as painful.
I think that a lot of it depends on your intent. If you go in with the intent, like you're mad at your friend, you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot stand that you're doing this right now, then it's going to come off that way. But if you go in with love and you're like, I love you, I care about you, I just want you to hear my perspective on this right now. And I think that your intent is going to change a lot of how that conversation goes.
Agreed. Another thing we can do daily is admitting our mistakes. We all make mistakes. Don't confuse a bad decision with a mistake. We should admit both. When I was working out at the jail, people would often say, well, I made a mistake. I'm like, did you? Did you accidentally steal that person's car? Did you think that was your car when you took it?
Mhm.
No, you didn't make a mistake. You made a bad decision. And I think it's important to understand the difference. But either way, whether
That is an interesting thing there. I like that. Sorry. So go ahead, continue.
we should admit our mistakes and our bad decisions because we're not perfect, because we are fallible. We get caught up with emotion. We get fearful. We get excited. We make decisions sometimes that aren't the best. So integrity isn't about never messing up. It's about owning up and correcting it. And that's what I think marks the integrity is not that you're perfect. It's not about perfection. As long as we are learning and growing and moving forward, we'll do okay. So I got some questions for you.
Okay, please.
What does integrity mean to you specifically?
I honestly, I was so you told me that the topic today was going to be integrity a little bit before doing this, and as I was driving home today, I was thinking about that, and honestly, the answer that I did come to was we talked about it earlier, but just having our actions, our thoughts, and what we say all align. Because if that's the case, then we are doing the best that we can as who we are to show who we are
Mhm.
and act as who we are.
Right.
I think integrity is not being afraid to be you and to put forth your best effort in everything, even when that's hard. So actually, I was thinking about this a little earlier, and I never thought about this as integrity before. Like something that comes to mind that has happened in my life is I always found it funny because like in Shrek, for example, I have my specific morals and my specific values and everything, and I'm pretty open about them, and people know who I am and they know what I stand for and everything. And I always found that funny because in Shrek, I'd be in the dressing room getting ready before a show or something, and someone would come in and they'd be talking or whatever, and they would say a swear word, you know, and then they would turn and they'd see me and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Lance, I'm so sorry." I'm like, because like that's what they see me as, and I'm okay with that because that's the reputation I built up, and I'm like, sure. Now, does that bother me? Not in the slightest. Like I really don't care. But because of that reputation I built up for myself, that's what's perceived of me, and I'm okay with that because that means that they know what I stand with and everything. I thought that was kind of funny little example. I'm like, I'd never thought about that as integrity, but I guess that is probably what that would be. So yeah,
Okay.
I just think it's standing for what you believe in, and yeah,
All right. I agree with that. I think that's a fair definition. So, is there anyone in your life that stands out as a model of integrity to you? Someone who's made a big impression on you?
I would say my brother because
Okay, throw his name out
he
here.
okay, Aiden McDaniel. He is a shining example of integrity. He would set his mind to something and then he would just do it. So like if I can give a specific example here,
As long as he's
like
okay with it, sure.
yeah, he likes sharing this story. He had decided he's diabetic. He's been diabetic for most of his life, and that comes with a whole host of challenges and whatnot. He had decided his whole life that he wanted to serve as an LDS missionary, and that was something he always wanted to do. And that was something he sought for his whole life, and he worked at it. And because of his diabetes, he got rejected several times, and it was a very long process. Well, eventually he got accepted and he was going to go. And he left in January of 2020. I don't know if you remember what happened that year.
Something happened that you something rings a bell.
Yeah, yeah, maybe a little bit, right? Well, March came just 2 months later, and the coronavirus pandemic started, and he ended up getting sent home from being a missionary after, I think it was, like, 64 days, and we're talking, like, this had taken him years of work to get up to that point, and then for him to end up coming home after 60 days was just heartbreaking for him, and I always wondered, like, if that was going to I don't know, change him as a person, change his thoughts, his beliefs, and everything. But it never did. He came home and he would call it his 60-day miracle, and he talked about how it affected him and even just that time that he was given. And I know that changed the trajectory of my life, was listening to my brother and seeing the integrity that he had to stand with everything despite the hardships he faced. Same with my sister. She's younger than me. Chloe McDaniel, she's fantastic. She was just recently diagnosed with diabetes as well. So I'm now
Stop
the
it.
only
That's a bad habit. Don't do
I
that.
know, right? And a couple years ago, she was diagnosed as well with juvenile arthritis, and it's hard. It's really hard. But she always does her best to be involved with things, and she knows where she stands with everything, and she does her best to be the best person she can be despite her challenges. And um, I'm lucky enough that I don't have any of those problems, you know, knock on wood. But it's just watching my siblings is just incredible to see them.
Good.
Mhm.
So, looking at my notes here, have you ever faced backlash from sticking with your integrity?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, I stand by the things I believe in and I act the way that at least I like to think, I shouldn't say that I always do because, we're all not perfect and everything else, and I am especially not so. But I try my best to put my actions where my mouth is and everything else and backwards and whatnot. But it's hard sometimes. I have had friends that disagree with me on things and disagree with me to such a level that they don't want to talk with me anymore, or anything like that. And it's hard,
Yeah.
because in my mind, I like to do my best to try and understand everyone and understand their point of view. Because, like I said, I believe everyone comes to their conclusions for a reason. So even if I have my conclusions, I like to believe I am always open to hearing other people's point of views. And I find that in today's world that isn't as common as I wish it was, that we're willing to hear each other and to listen to each other. And I find that it does bring some hardships sometimes to stand by what you believe and to do that. So yeah,
Okay. If you could give a piece of advice to someone trying to strengthen their integrity, what would that be?
I mean, I just think it comes down to find out where you stand just on whatever it may be. Find out where you stand and then stick with it no matter how hard it gets. Because at the end of the day, you can try and please people. You can try and act a certain way that you believe everyone wants you to act. But if you're not doing what you believe to be true personally, then I don't believe that you will be able to find that happiness you're looking for. But if you do find what you believe and you stand by it, then you'll be able to make your own way to happiness, whatever that may look like for you.
I think if you act with integrity, you should always be able to sleep better at night.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
again, going back to that peace that we get when we act with integrity, it doesn't mean that everything is going well, but we can always say we acted with integrity, even if it didn't go well. And
Mhm.
there's nothing that we can lay on our own shoulders per se. I think saying I misbehaved would be a lot harder to sleep with than I did what was right, even if it was hard. That doesn't mean you're going to sleep well every night.
No, probably not, but, it's the idea.
So, if I can ask, and it's okay if you don't want to answer this, but have you ever made a choice that went against your values and what did you learn?
Well, let me think. I know I have. I know I have. I'm trying to think of, like, a specific example off the top of my head. I'm a pretty open book, so I'm fine sharing. I just can't think of anything in particular right now.
Oh,
Um
that's probably a good sign.
But I know I have many times, many times. I would say more than anything, that's how I came to know my values is because I saw the opposite side of them. And I was like, well, that wasn't as cool as it wasn't as I was thinking it was going to be.
Mhm.
Um, and so I guess I would say more than anything is it helped me discover and solidify what my values are.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. So, I'm going to wrap up. I thank you again for coming on board, Lance
Absolutely. Thanks for
McDreamy.
having me. That's right. That's right.
Lance McDreamy.
I'm taking that. That's my new stage name.
All right, you got it. I expect to see that in your next program.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna put it in my
All right. And it's got to be true because it's going to be on the internet, and the internet's never wrong.
That's true. That's true.
All right. So I want to thank all my listeners for being here today. I want to thank Lance for being here. I would like to issue a challenge. This week, I want you to look for one moment. Well, I want you to look for a lot of moments, but I want you to make an effort to find a moment where integrity is coming into play, whether it's big, whether it's small, whether it's telling the truth, keeping a promise, whatever it is. When you have to make a choice to act with integrity or standing up for someone, I challenge you to make a point of doing that. Believe it or not, the small choices matter just as much as the big ones, especially when it comes to integrity. Again, it's doing the right thing even when no one is looking. So, once again, I am Lee Perry. I am the Pirate Therapist. I thank you all for joining us today. Thanks again, Lance. I want to thank you all,
Thank
and
you.
I will see you again next week. So if you like these episodes, please subscribe, please join, please tell your friends if you feel good about that. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. We will talk to everybody next week on the next episode of The Pirate Therapist with Lee Perry. Okay.